It's the drink that just completely took over the soda aisle.
Oh, absolutely.
It replaced all those sugary cans with these sleek, fizzy alternatives. We saw this huge consumer shift away from sweetened beverages.
And sparkling water just filled that vacuum perfectly.
But here's the real question, the one we need to dig into. Are those glorious bubbles actually helping your body, or are they maybe secretly eroding your teeth, weakening your bones, or even making you hungrier?
And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're doing a deep dive into the science of sparkling water. We've gone through a huge literature survey that covers, well, everything.
Everything.
Its history, which goes back to 18th century chemistry, its very real therapeutic effects, the impact on bone density, and even these strange connections to brain function and hunger hormones.
So our mission is to really unpack the full truth for you, because the category itself is just so nuanced.
It really is.
You walk into the grocery store and you see natural mineral water, seltzer, club soda, flavored versions of everything, and the health effects, they depend entirely on what is in that bottle.
Right. Beyond just the HO and Co arrow, you absolutely have to know the ingredient list. You can't just rely on the marketing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the history. It feels so modern, this whole canned seltzer craze. But the human love for fizz is, what, ancient?
It is, yes. The origin story is thousands of years old. Long before anyone could bottle it, you had ancient civilizations, like the Greeks and Romans, who valued these naturally effervescent springs.
For what? For health reasons?
Exactly. They thought they had therapeutic properties. They built these elaborate bathhouses, spas around naturally carbonated springs in places like Turkey and Germany. It was wellness before wellness was a buzzword.
But the modern version, the ability to just put that fizz anywhere you want, on demand, that's a huge leap.
It's a massive technological jump.
So give us the wow fact. Where did artificial carbonation start?
Well, that credit goes to an English scientist, Joseph Priestley, way back in 1767. And his method for discovering it is just fantastic. He literally suspended a bowl of water above fermenting beer at a brewery in Leeds.
Wait, really?
Yes, just capturing the quinose gas as it rose. He was using beer fumes to make the first fizzy water.
I love that. So the foundation of modern seltzer was literally built on the exhaust from brewing beer.
It's true. And by 1772, he published his findings on how to make an exceedingly pleasant sparkling water using sulfuric acid and chalk.
So who made it scalable? Who took it from the lab to the store?
Two key people. In 1771, a Swedish chemist, Torbjörn Bergman, he developed a more efficient carbonation machine. But then the commercial giant, Johann Jakob Schwepp, he refined those methods and founded the Schweppes Company in 1790.
And there it is. The rest is history.
That's the lineage of the modern bubbly empire.
So what does this all mean for us today? Let's map out the landscape. Because you said not all sparkling water is the same. How should we categorize these drinks?
We have to define them by what's actually dissolved in the water. So first up is natural mineral water. Think Perrier or San Pellegrino.
Right.
It's naturally carbonated underground, and it's defined by a really high mineral content. We're talking 250 parts per million or more.
So that mineral content gives it its distinct taste.
Absolutely. Then you get the plain artificial versions. Seltzer is the purest of those.
Okay.
It's just plain water, carbonated with Canoro, and zero added minerals. Nothing else.
And what about the one that always confuses me? Club soda.
Ah, club soda. It's also artificially carbonated, but it has added compounds, usually minerals like sodium bicarbonate. That gives it a slightly salty taste.
Got it. And the last one, tonic water, which it barely feels like water at all.
Well, it's not. It contains quinine for that bitter flavor and usually sweeteners, so it has calories. If you're drinking tonic, you're basically drinking a soda.
Okay, let's get into the physics of it. How do they actually get the gas to dissolve so well in the water?
It all comes down to a principle called Henry's Law. Basically, gas solubility goes up under higher pressure and lower temperatures.
So they make the water really cold.
Exactly. They chill the water almost to freezing, because the colder it is, the more coquio it can absorb. Then they inject the gas under high pressure.
And that's what gives you that powerful fizz when you pop the can.
That's it.
And what about that tangy, almost sharp taste?
That's a weak acid at work. The courose dissolves and creates carbonic acid, or HCO, that lowers the pH slightly and gives it that characteristic refreshing taste.
All right, let's tackle the big myths, the ones we hear at every cookout. First up, hydration. Does sparkling water hydrate you less than regular water?
The evidence on this is very strong, and the answer is definitively no.
No difference at all.
None. Scientific studies that measured urine output for hours after consumption found absolutely no significant difference in hydration status between people drinking carbonated versus still water. It's the same HO.
So if you like the taste and it makes you drink more water overall.
It's actually helping your hydration goals.
Fantastic. Okay, myth number 2, the big one. Does carbonated water weaken your bones? I know people who swear off seltzer because they think it's leaching calcium.
This myth is so persistent. And it likely comes from the 2006 Framingham osteoporosis study.
Which found a link to bone density loss, right?
It did, but it linked it to cola consumption, not all carbonated drinks.
So we need to make a distinction here. It wasn't the bubbles.
Precisely. The problem in cola was the phosphoric acid, which you don't find in plain sparkling water. And to put this to rest, a huge 1994 study of 1,000 women concluded that bone mineral density was not associated with drinking carbonated beverages.
So your skeleton is safe.
Your skeleton is safe.
Okay, we've cleared up the bone myth, but the dental risk, that's where the science gets really tricky, doesn't it?
It does, because that carbonic acid is still an acid, even if it's a weak one.
You mentioned a critical pH of around 4.5. How close does a typical unflavored seltzer get to that?
That's the key point. Plain carbonated water generally poses a minimal risk because its typical pH is around 5.
So it's above that danger zone.
It is. It's above that threshold where significant erosion really starts. Research found plain sparkling water had about the same tiny effect on enamel as regular lab water.
But we still see headlines about dental erosion all the time, so where's the real danger coming from?
It comes from the flavorings. The real villain here is the addition of citric acid.
The natural flavors.
Exactly. That's what gives drinks that tart, fruity punch. And it can drastically lower the pH, often plunging it well below that critical 4.5 threshold. That's what accelerates enamel erosion.
So the takeaway is, don't just trust the word flavor, you have to check the ingredients for citric acid.
That's precisely the case.
Oh.
But here's where the science offers a solution.
Oh.
There's really compelling research showing that adding tiny amounts of calcium ions to the water can significantly reduce this destructive tendency. The calcium basically acts as a buffer.
Wait, so the solution is already out there. Why isn't every flavored water brand doing that?
That's a great question. It's likely a mix of cost, manufacturing habits, and flavor profiling. But the science is there. It's a way to get the flavor with minimal risk.
Okay, let's move on to some of the surprising benefits. This is where it goes beyond just being a soda replacement. Tell me about the digestive support.
Yeah, we have some really solid research here. A randomized, double-blind clinical trial found that drinking carbonated water significantly improved multiple digestive issues.
Like what?
After 2 weeks, constipation scores dropped significantly. Dyspepsia scores, which is basically chronic indigestion, also improved markedly.
Wow, so a real measurable improvement in just 2 weeks.
A huge improvement. And the study, which was in the European Journal of Gastroenterology and Hepatology, found that tap water had no significant effect. It also seemed to improve gallbladder emptying.
That's fascinating. I also heard it can be used for people with swallowing difficulties, dysphagia.
Yes, that's another therapeutic use, especially for older patients or those with conditions like Parkinson's. The carbonation provides sensory stimulation.
So the bubbles sort of wake up the throat.
In a way, yes. Studies show the bubbles trigger the swallowing reflex earlier and reduce the transit time, making the swallow safer and more coordinated.
But there is a downside for some people.
There is. The main concern is for anyone with irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS. For them, the TO euros can cause gas and bloating and potentially trigger a flare-up.
Now let's talk about the brain and the heart, because this was really unexpected. I think most of us assume water is just water.
Well, a 2022 study found something really interesting. Ingesting cold carbonated water actually increased blood flow velocity in the middle cerebral artery.
In simple terms.
It means faster blood flow to your brain.
Wow.
And this correlated with higher motivation, more exhilaration, and less sleepiness, especially in people who are resting under heat stress.
So it's like a short-term physiological boost for your brain, especially when you're hot and tired.
Exactly. It can help mitigate that drop in blood pressure after exercise in the heat. And there's even some research showing immersion in co-rich water can improve the health of your blood vessels.
And what about that cholesterol finding you mentioned?
One study on a specific sodium-rich carbonated mineral water found it decreased total cholesterol by almost 7% and LDL, the bad cholesterol, by nearly 15%.
So again, the specific minerals in the water really matter.
They matter profoundly.
Okay, we have to talk about weight management now. This is the most confusing part of the research, with the most contradictory findings. On one hand, it fills you up.
It does, but it's very short term. The carbonation causes gastric distension. It stretches your stomach, which makes you feel full. But studies show that feeling of satiety only lasts for about 40 minutes.
Only 40 minutes.
Right. And here's where the complication comes in. The hunger hormone.
Ghrelin.
Exactly. A study in obesity research and clinical practice found that carbonated water actually increased ghrelin levels in rats. And a small study in human males showed the same thing.
So it might actually increase your appetite later on.
That's the paradox.
That's so weird. It physically expands your stomach to make you feel full, but is also telling your brain, hey, get ready for a big meal.
That's the leading hypothesis. The stomach gets stretched by the gas, which triggers the ghrelin release, even though no real calories have arrived. So you feel full now, but you might overeat an hour later.
But these studies are pretty small, right?
Very small. We need much larger trials to really figure this out.
And now there's this brand new idea from a 2025 report in BMJ Nutrition Prevention and Health that the coat euro itself could help with weight loss.
Right, by enhancing glucose metabolism in your red blood cells. It's a theory that an enzyme converts the CoO to bicarbonate, which then stimulates a metabolic process.
So the bubble itself acts like a tiny metabolic stimulant?
In theory. But even the authors added a big caveat. The amount of co-euros is so small, you really can't expect significant weight loss from it. This whole area is still very much up for debate.
Okay, let's zoom out to the market. The growth is just, it's huge.
It's massive. The global market is projected to grow from around 46 billion this year to over 70 billion by 2030. It's a global phenomenon now.
And a lot of that growth is being driven by these functional sparkling waters, the ones with added probiotics and things.
Definitely. They're tapping into that consumer demand for health.
Yeah.
But we have to acknowledge the research gap here.
What do you mean?
Well, as the literature says, whether or not these sodas do exactly the same thing or not, it's yet to be seen because there really hasn't been any research on it.
So we know the ingredients, like prebiotics, are good for you on their own.
Right.
But we don't know if they're still effective after they've been put into a carbonated acidic beverage. It's marketing getting ahead of the science.
In many cases, yes. They're riding that health halo without the specific trials to back up the delivery method.
And speaking of the big picture, what about the environmental impact? All those cans and bottles.
This is such a powerful point. Commercial bottling is very energy intensive, but home carbonation systems offer a huge sustainability benefit.
Yeah, huge.
We're talking an approximate 80% reduction in plastic waste compared to buying bottled water.
An 80% reduction. So if you're a heavy seltzer drinker, that one switch to a home system is a massive environmental win.
It really is. The choice of how you get your fizz has a very real impact.
Lily, this has been an incredibly deep dive. Before we wrap up, give us the 3 key evidence-based takeaways for everyone listening.
Okay, my summary is this. 1, hydration and bone health. Plain sparkling water hydrates you just as well as still water and has no negative effect on your bones. That myth is busted.
Got it.
2, digestion. It can genuinely help with things like constipation and indigestion, but if you have IBS, you should be a little cautious about the potential for bloating.
Okay, and number 3?
Choose plain. For the best health benefits and the lowest dental risk, always choose plain, unflavored sparkling water. Avoid added sugars and, most importantly, citric acid. The simpler, the better.
That's the clarity we needed.
All right.
So while plain sparkling water is generally safe and healthy, that contradictory research on hunger,
Yeah,
that really highlights a big, unresolved question.
it does. We're still learning exactly how the bubbles talk to our stomach and our brain.
Which raises an important question you should ask yourself next time you grab a can. Given that conflict on hunger hormones, that short-term fullness versus a potential ghrelin spike, does your bubbly water make you feel satisfied for 40 minutes? Or does it just trigger your next snack attack?
And only you can answer that. But the science says it's worth paying attention to.
We encourage you to subscribe and share this deep dive with anyone who loves a bit of bubbly. We'll see you next time.